Hi guys, and welcome to another Wargame Red Dragon tutorial video with me, Bubblebox, and today we're following on from the tutorial on helicopter management to looking at some of the individual helicopters, and as per normal we're going to be using the USA and the Russian decks as examples of the Blue 4 and Red 4 decks respectively, and also pointing out a couple of extra choppers that I think are especially good. So I'll start off with the Americans, and it breaks them down nicely into their roles of anti-aircraft, anti-tank, gunship and transports. We'll have a look at the transports first of all quite briefly, because I've spoken about these in a couple of tutorials already. Of course you can't get these as individual choppers, these come with troops inside them, and they've got a nice selection, have the Americans. They're all of course fairly sort of strength wise, they've not got any armour at all, so they're quite weak and quite easily taken down, although some of them have got quite decent strength. For example, the Chinooks have got a strength of 10, so they can take a man pad and still keep moving as long as you're microing them quite quickly. But some of the cheaper ones down here, even the Black Hawks, have only got a strength of 6. Speed is important when looking at troop carriers. You want them as fast as possible so you can get them to their positions as fast as possible, and again the more expensive ones such as the Black Hawks tend to be a little bit faster than the cheaper ones such as the Hueys at 220 kilometers per hour compared to the Black Hawks at 300 kilometers per hour. As far as weaponry is concerned, probably the worst type of weaponry first of all is the machine gun, which is the cheapest the Hueys tend to have. This Huey here, it's only cost 15 points, so if you want something really cheap with a gun that's pretty useless just to get your troops around, then you can get some Hueys. The twin Huey's got a mini gun which is a little bit more useful than the machine gun, and the Black Hawk has the mini gun as well, as does the Chinook and the PHROG. So the minigun's pretty good, the machine gun's pretty useless. Now, looking at the more interesting types of craft, we'll have a look first of all at the anti-aircraft, and the only one the Americans have got is this OH-58CS, a very useful chopper to have in your deck, especially if you've got an airborne deck. And it just has these Stinger missiles, 4 missiles. You might want to get them vetted up because it can use these 4 missiles. It shoots them fairly quickly and you don't really want them to miss. I think they come in a pack of 4 if you get them vetted up, or 6 if you don't get them vetted. They've got a nice accuracy of 50%, so a couple of them should hit, and they've got stabilizers so they can shoot on the move as well. They've got a reasonable range versus helicopters, and an not too brilliant but okay range against aeroplanes. The aeroplanes do have to get quite close to them for these guys to actually get their missiles off against aeroplanes, but mainly they're useful for shooting down other helicopters. There are Red 4 helicopters which have a longer range than these OHs, so you do have to be fairly careful when you're supporting maybe an airborne deck push towards a town at the beginning of a game. But as I say, they can be nice and useful at the beginning of a game and during a game as well, if you keep them fueled up with their Stinger missiles. Next we'll have a look at the anti-tank ones next. The anti-tanks, the Americans have got some nice choppers with anti-tank gun missiles. The Super Cobra first of all, it's got this nice TOW2 missile, very nice TOW2 missile. The range is not fantastic but okay at 2625, but its accuracy is pretty immense, 70%, with an AP power of 25. This is going to put a big dent in any armoured vehicle and in any tank, no matter what the armour value of the tank, if it can hit them with a couple of its missiles. And 120 points is not bad value, especially it's got 8 of these TOW2s. Now it's also got some infrared anti-aircraft missiles, so it's a bit of a dual purpose chopper, and with a nice range against helicopters of 2,800. Now it's a lot more expensive than the OHs that we looked at before at 120 points, but yeah, it's dual use, so you can bring it in. You could bring it in at the start again to support perhaps a airborne chopper push with its long range, and also it'll have these in case you want to pick off any armoured vehicles on the way. And it's got a nice accuracy with these, and it's got a longer range than the OHs against aeroplanes as well, so can pick off the aeroplanes at a fair distance, perhaps even before those aircraft get a shot off at your Super Cobras, which is really useful. It's also got a Vulcan minigun, which again is good against helicopters and can shoot at ground units such as infantry and lightly armoured vehicles as well, and can keep them nice and stunned while you're trying to kill them with something else. So a nice all-round kind of chopper for 120 points. Now this guy is also sort of an all-rounder a little bit, but it's more of a tank killer probably than the Super Cobra. It's a little bit cheaper, but you haven't got the anti-air missiles, of course. You've got this beautiful Hellfire missile, which is partially sort of for fire and forget. Basically, the missile is guided but can be fired on the move. Its operator needs to aim at the target until the impact. So in other words, you need to see the target whilst you're firing this missile, although it can fire this missile on the move, I guess. Not quite sure really, but I guess that's what it means. It's got 8 of them, nice range, huge accuracy again, stabilizer, and an AP power of 25. So let's just compare that actually to the Super Cobra. So yeah, it's just the longer range really. Everything else is pretty comparable with that anti-tank missile, apart from the range is a little bit longer with on the MH60L. But of course you haven't got these anti-aircraft. You've got this auto cannon on here as well, which is good against ground units and helicopters, just as the minigun, the Vulcan minigun is on there, this one. Now if you just want to go for a pure anti-tank gun weapon, then you could get these Seahawks. These used to be a favourite of mine in European escalation. I don't use them so much in this one now. I tend to get the Super Cobras. But they've got beautiful, these really nice Hellfire missiles, and if you want something a little bit cheaper, purely as an anti-tank gun weapon, you could do a lot worse than getting these guys. 300Ks, they're all pretty fast. I think they're all 300. In fact, the Super Cobra is 350Ks. That's got to be one of the fastest choppers in the game, I would have thought. Next, we're going to have a look at the Gunships. And they've got a nice selection again of gunship choppers, have the Americans. In fact, the Americans have got a really nice selection of choppers as a whole, and they do you can make a really nice airborne deck with the Americans, and the only thing that you'd lack in that deck would be tanks and some anti-air, although you can use the planes instead if you're fairly skillful with the planes. We've got this sort of downgraded Sea Cobra this time. It's got a slightly downgraded tow missile. It's got rocket pods here instead of the anti-air missile and the Vulcan minigun as well. So really this is a bit of an all-rounder, can shoot infantry, armoured trucks, stuff like that, and tanks as well to a certain degree. The AP power of course is a lot less than on the main ATGM Super Cobra we saw just now. Then you've got the other Cobras, which sort of start with this 45 pointer. This is really quite useful because you get a lot of them in your deck, and they're really good for shooting at sort of fairly lightly armoured trucks, I suppose, or you can suppress larger tanks as well with it. But if you catch some infantry in the open with one of these guys, you're going to absolutely decimate that infantry. Of course, the range isn't fantastic at 2,100 meters. It can be outranged by a lot of anti-air units, so you've got to be quite cautious. You can also use these perhaps at endgame if you're trying to overrun some enemy right at the end. You could perhaps spam a load of these out, fly them over a region, just to try and pick off those last 1 or 2 commands. The upgrade of this, I guess, is the AH-1E Cobra. This time you've got your rocket pods, your Hydra rocket pods, exactly the same as the AH-1S, and the same got a minigun, well, Vulcan this time, but you've also got this tow missile. Not the best tow missile in the world, but still quite effective. But only 4 of them, half of them will hit, so it's sort of a bit of an all-rounder, a cheap all-rounder I suppose you'd call it, for only 60 points to bring in. And then if I get rid of that, we'll pin that. Then you've got the upgraded AF-1H Cobra. This has got the ITO missile, so a better anti-tank gun missile again, much better AP power, better accuracy, and same Hydra and the Vulcan gun. So a nice all-rounder as well. A little bit more expensive, but a much better or a better anti-tank weapon. All of these have got in the range of speed, I think, of about 280, including the Cobra, yeah, and strengths of 6. I think they've all got a strength of 6, yeah. So they're not too strong. If they take a couple of hits from a manpad, they're going to go down quite easily. Then we've got the big daddy of them all, the big Apache. This, I think, is one of the most expensive choppers in the USA deck, but it's got these fantastic Hellfire missiles, 8 of them, with an accuracy of 70% and a stabilizer as well, so will fire on the move similar to the one that I spoke about before. It's got a little bit of armor and a strength of 8, so it can take a hit. If you're quick, you can get it out of the way. It's not the fastest thing in the world at 280 Ks, and it's also got this nice rocket pod and this autocannon as well for shooting at infantry and armored trucks, I suppose, as well, and suppressing tanks. Now next we've got this little bird, the AH-6C little bird. Now this is a useful little helicopter. It's very cheap at 30 and you get an awful lot of them, and what it's got is this grenade launcher, and these grenade launchers are really good at suppressing pretty much anything, especially infantry, and they will destroy infantry actually if you've got a couple of these shooting at some infantry. Basically they're like a, as it says there, they're like an overpowered heavy machine gun and will kill infantry and suppress pretty much anything else. They're very cheap, they're not the fastest in the world, they've only got a strength of 4, they get taken down quite easily, but if you, again, it depends what you want in your deck. I usually have these in my USA deck because they're so cheap and you get a couple of them and try and suppress any infantry or any armoured truck pushes or anything like that. Lastly, we've got the Hogs. I tend not to go for these myself, but I do see people use them and they can be quite useful. The range is quite limited at 2,100. You've got the basic one, which is just a rocket pod with 48 rockets. Useful really just for killing infantry, I guess. And then you've got this one, exactly the same rocket pod, and also you've got this grenade launcher as well for to have some suppressive powers alongside the rocket pods. So again, cheap, plentiful, if you want to get something spammed out. If I want to spam one, I usually go for the AH-1S Cobra though, because I just like the rocket pods on this. I think they're really effective. So that's about it for the Americans. And next we'll have a look at the Russian helicopters. Now the Russians have got a very nice selection of helicopters again. They've got let's get rid of these others first of all. So they've got a decent selection of troop carriers with some nice weapons on their troop carrying helicopters as well. You've got this Ka-29TB with a nice rocket pod and a nice Gatling gun as well. And then you've got the Mi-8T, sorry, which is pretty much the same as the Mi-8 with a little rocket pod. I tend to bring in infantry in this quite a lot because you can drop them off, and then this little chopper can be quite useful throughout the game for killing infantry and flying around and hassling the enemy wherever they need to be hassled. And you've also got one with a little machine gun. I don't find the machine gun very useful for the extra 5 points, to be honest, so I tend to take the more basic model where I can. And then you've got the Mi-8 MTV with a much more powerful rocket pod with much greater accuracy, a better stabilizer and a much higher HE power, and will stun tanks nicely as well with that one for the extra 5 points if you wanted to pay an extra 5 points. But again, the machine gun not really that useful in my opinion. And then you've got this other troop carrier, the Mi-24D. This is an interesting one, especially if maybe you want to bring in a couple of ATGM choppers at the beginning of the game. You can bring them in with some infantry in as well, and then you've got these to use throughout the game. They're not the best ATGM weapons, but they're okay. They've got a fairly limited range at 2,450. Accuracy is not brilliant, and they've only got 4 missiles, so you might get 1 or 2 to hit if you're lucky before you have to rearm them. They have got a bit of armor though, and a strength of 10, so they can take a little bit of punishment if they get caught out. And they've got a nice rocket pod and the Gatling gun as well. So a nice, depends what you want really. They are expensive perhaps to bring in at the beginning of game with infantry as well. You're looking at like 100 points per squad if you want to bring them with infantry in, but again, that's a personal choice you'd have to make. And then we'll have a look at their anti-aircraft. Now they've got this guy now, the Mi-24V. Now The recent patch, or the recent DLC, or I'd rather call it a mega patch rather than a DLC to be honest, but it changed this. This used to be an ATGM chopper, and now it's the ATGM weapon's gone, and you've got this Igla in its place now. Surface to air missile, decent-ish kind of range against choppers, and an okay limited use against aeroplanes, but a very nice accuracy and a very nice stabilizer. Fires on the move. It's got a bit of armor and a strength of 10, so that's a nice anti-aircraft chopper, and it's also going to have some use against infantry and lightly armored trucks with its rocket pod and its Gatling gun as well. So a nice one, which I pretty much will always have in my Russian decks, I believe. The anti-tank weapons, it's the bigger cooler, the most expensive chopper I think in the game. It is very effective, but it is very expensive, and if the enemy see these Akulas, they'll probably do their best to try and shoot them down. They look pretty damned awesome as well. Look at that beast there. They've got a nice anti-air missile, 4 of them, with a very nice accuracy of 60% and a very nice stabilizer of 60% as well, and a good range against helicopters, fairly limited against aeroplanes. They are armoured, and they're very fast, and they've got a strength of 8 as well. As well as that, you've got these 12 Vickers ATGM missiles, and these are really nice as well. 12 of them are massive range, really long range, 2,975 meters, to keep you hopefully out of the way of any anti-air that's looming around. Accuracy 50%, stabilizer 50%, a massive AP power of 26. This is going to take out a couple of these rockets, or take out any big tank, I would have thought. You know, as I say, it's fast, it's got a decent strength, and you've also got an auto cannon there for use as well if required. Then we've got the gunships. Got a nice range of gunships, have the Russians, and indeed all the Red 4 factions now have got decent gunships. Got the Mi-24A, sort of a mixed gunship, quite cheap, not the best ATGM in the world, with an accuracy of only 30% and only 4 missiles. So it's not the best in the world. AP power 13. I'd probably overlook this one in most of my decks, although it has got a strength of 10 and an armor. It's got some armor as well, but with its weapon being fairly inaccurate with only 4 missiles, you know, it's just wonder if it's really worth it. It has got a rocket pod for attacking infantry as well, and it's only 45 points. I mean, what do you expect for 45 points? And then we've got the Mi-24P. This has got these fairly nice Kokon ATGM missiles, and very nice actually. They've got an accuracy of 50% and an AP power of 20. They do have to be still to fire, of course. These haven't got any stabilizers. But they have got a range of 2,800, a nice big AP power of 20, strength of 10, fast, yeah, so a pretty nice weapon. And you've also got your rocket pod, and you've got the auto cannon to go along with it as well. And then we've got the upgrade of this, the Mi-24VP with the Kokon M. Same range, same accuracy, but a slightly, very slightly better AP power, up by 2 points. The same armor and the same speed though. Exactly the same rocket pod and exactly the same auto cannon as well. So you pay an extra, what, 20 points for an extra 2 AP power. I'll leave you to decide whether you think that's really worth it or not. Probably not. Probably go for the cheaper one myself. So I'll pin that one, I think, and then we'll have a look at the Mi-28. The Mi-28 I really like. It is expensive, yes, but it's got these Attacker 5 missiles, and hey, look at that, you get 16 of them if you can keep this guy alive during the game, and you can shoot a lot of tanks down with it. Range of 2,800, huge accuracy of 65, and a bit of a stabilizer there as well. AP power 22. Bit of armor and a strength of 8. A nice rocket pod as well, powerful rocket pod with 10 sort of S-13 missiles. with sort of decent-ish kind of accuracy average really, and then you've got your auto cannon to go with it. But it's this guy here, these missiles, 16 of them. Keep it alive, make sure you keep it alive, and you'll be using this the whole game if you keep it out of the range of their AA. Then we've got a couple of cheapies. We've got the MI4A and the MI4AV. The MI, basically, they've both got the same rocket or similar rocket pods. This one is actually slightly better than that one. So look at the MI4A first. It's got a rocket pod and a machine gun. You can get these as sole choppers. You don't have to bring them in with infantry or anything. Limited range again, but you know, we'll suppress staff, we'll kill staff if you want to take these. The Malayutka, not the best ATGM in the world. Accuracy 40%, sort of not fantastic but not terrible. AP power 15, and then you've got your rocket pod and a little machine gun as well. You could bring these in kind of, I guess, in emergencies. So if there's a tank push, you could bring these in to stun a load of tanks to stop them moving forward and stuff like that. So that's about it for the Red 4. However, I just want to show you, before I forget, this guy. I've shown you it before. I absolutely love this chopper. It's in the reconnaissance tab, and what I like about it is it's got these seed missiles. It's only got 2 of them, but the range is 2,500. So if it detects a radar guided anti-air unit, it will automatically shoot these missiles at that unit with a nice accuracy and a stabilizer to boot. It's got a little bit of armor and a strength of 8, and it's quite fast, and its optics are exceptional, so it's going to spot these AA radar units without any problems, and it is very, very effective. It's good to use with things like tank pushes. If you're doing a tank push and you want to bring, and the enemy is sort of resisting you with tanks, if you bring some ATGMs along with a couple of these guys to shoot down their radar missiles, you can do very, very well indeed with this guy. And there's one other one, if I can remember where it is. I think it's a Czech one, which I'm just going to have a quick look at. Let's bring it up, select all. I think it's this. Yeah, this guy. This is one that's been added in the patch, I believe, the MI25S24. And what makes this stand out from a lot of the others is this rocket here, the S24B. It's got a range of 2,450, an okay accuracy and a decent, well, an okay-ish sort of stabilizer, but look at the HE power 11. Now I put this in my Eastern Bloc deck. I haven't had a chance to test it yet since the new DLC came out, but with an HE power of 11, I'm guessing if you shoot these at infantry, you're going to absolutely decimate those infantry. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try it quite soon, hopefully, and we'll see if this guy works. It's got nice armor as well, and a strength of 10, and it's very, very fast. So I really look forward to trying that one out as well. So I think overall, I think Red 4 have got a little bit perhaps the upper hand overall in choppers, especially in terms of their armor and strength and the mixture of types of choppers each of the nations have got. Blue 4 aren't as strong. The Americans very strong, but the other nations perhaps not as strong in choppers, but still fairly decent. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.